Hi, I'm Jody Miller, welcoming you to this edition of Polyphonic Voices. I've got with me Charlie Schultz here. We're interviewing at St. Bartholomew's Episcopal Church here in Atlanta in front of this grand Rosales organ that was installed several years ago. We're at St. Bart's because it's really an important center for early music in the Atlanta area. Not only does Lauda Musicum rehearse and perform here, our concert attendees can also see New Trinity Baroque in concert from time to time, Atlanta Schola Cantorum, and other groups. So I encourage you, if you haven't already, come visit St. Mark's and check out what it's all about. So Charlie is someone that I've not known for a relatively long period of time, but Charlie is really steeped in the early music community here in Atlanta. And I'll give a little spoiler in that Charlie is moving soon to St. Louis. However, his impact on the early music community has been really remarkable in the time since he's been involved in it. So welcome, Charlie.
Thank you.
So first of all, tell us who you really are outside of the music life. What was your career? What was your field of study?
Well, I graduated a long time ago with a BSEE electrical engineering, and that was my career until 5 years ago when I retired.
Yeah. Oh, so I can relate to the retirement thing. So, as an electrical engineer, what type of work did you do? Probably lots of things, I'm guessing.
Lots of things. I started out working at Motorola. We worked on communication systems. From there, I went to a video game manufacturer. Back when video games were in a place where you had to go to arcades.
Oh, so this would have been like the 70s or 80s?
Yeah, it would have been the early 80s.
Okay.
And from there, I wound up at a couple other places in between. I wound up, and this was all up in the Chicago area. After I got out of school, I started at Motorola in Chicago, and wound up at a laser company that was owned by Amoco Oil at the time. And they spun off, they got bought by Scientific Atlanta. And after a period of time, they sort of moved us down from Chicago to Atlanta, so that's how I got down here. And then, of course, Cisco bought Scientific Atlanta.
Okay, so it's almost like an Atlanta bank. It has a different name just every few years for whatever reason. Yeah. So, and you're originally from the Cincinnati area, I believe?
I'm originally from around Cincinnati.
Okay. Yeah. And what led you to Chicago for school? Was it just a program?
I went to school in Indiana, and when I graduated from school, I interviewed with Motorola, and they offered me a job.
Okay, so where in Indiana were you?
Terre Haute.
Oh, okay. And I don't know Indiana that well, just a little bit of work in Bloomington, so that's
okay.
That and Indianapolis is about my experience.
Okay. Well, Indianapolis is the middle, Terre Haute is the southwest corner.
Okay. So when you came to Atlanta, did you bring with you any prior music skills?
Yes, because when I lived in Chicago was when I started getting interested in building musical instruments.
Now, was this as a rank beginner, or could you already play musical instruments at that time?
No, I mean, when I was a kid, I took piano lessons for a couple years, because my mom made me.
Okay.
And school, we had tonette.
Oh, I remember those. We never used them, but I'm one of the very few people in the world who probably bought one on purpose.
Right next to your car.
Absolutely, next to a Garcline recorder.
So that must have been 6th grade, and that was about it for school. Never took any music courses in college. It was an engineering college, so there was not much.
Absolutely no time.
And then that too, after I got out of school, spent a lot of time working. But I always liked woodworking, and over a few years I started getting tools and stuff, and moved a couple times up there, and probably right after I got out of college, I played around with guitar for a while.
Okay.
And then one day I heard some classical guitar music, and that was it.
That was a lot different from your 3 or 4 chords you probably were learning at the time.
Exactly.
Okay.
In multiple ways, I always liked, when I was playing, when I started to play, I liked the finger style type guitars. It's just the chords, I was more into the folk music type stuff, Jody Donovan, those kinds of artists. And anyway, I was walking home from work or walking home from the train station, and I heard some classical guitar music. I said, "Oh, I got to learn that."
Okay.
And of course, that was typically Baroque Renaissance music. So I really got into that. I started taking lessons. That was where I started getting into early music. And
well, who were the first guitar players that you listened to? That outside of the folk and pop realm, what were the first guitar players?
Yeah, it would have been like Segovia, John Williams, and those big names. So
Okay.
Romero's, Elliot Fisk, and a bunch of others.
Okay. Did you
came around?
Yeah. Did you find learning guitar as an adult with a working life? Did you find that difficult, or did your interest just make that an easy path for you to follow?
It was, it's the technique is difficult, getting everything right, but it was fun. So, and I had a good teacher. I had a really good teacher, and that made that makes just so much difference.
Oh, absolutely. And do you still play guitar?
Yeah, although I've started on lute, and one of the things is between lute and classical guitar is fingernails.
Yeah.
So.
So you've had to cut some fingernails.
Cut the fingernails to play the lute well, whereas for classical guitars you really need the fingernails.
Oh, so you came to a fork in the road.
Yeah, I came to a fork in the road, and quite honestly, I don't have time to, because I'm also doing viol and recorders by themselves.
Yeah.
Between you and Ann and.
Yeah. So to our listeners, what Charlie's referring to, which is one thing that makes him so remarkable in this sense, is that at some point he found a recorder teacher, he found a gamba teacher, and he found a lute teacher. And he didn't just start early music, he immersed himself in it. So I'm curious, because I have a difficult time keeping up with it. It seems to be like even though it's a wonderful journey, it seems very complex to me. Was your first early instrument recorder?
We moved here, and up in Chicago we had the Chicago Classical Guitar Society, and they'd sponsor concerts, spring or fall and spring. And they'd bring in artists. We're going to those pretty regularly. Moved down here, and I don't know where, but I saw the NTB, New Trinity Baroque.
Okay.
So we started coming to New Trinity Baroque concerts, because this isn't too bad of a trip. And I think one of the earliest ones that we went to, you were playing recorders.
Okay.
And that's the first time
I never knew this.
Yeah. You had a whole slew, and you were playing with NTB.
Okay.
And the other thing that happened there was somehow I heard about AMA, and those two went together. So I joined AMA and attended the concerts. Then I saw you, and you probably talked about Lauda, and that was really the first time I ever even saw recorders.
Okay.
Because I don't remember them from school. We didn't have them in school.
Yeah.
Nobody that I knew played them, or else confessed to playing them. So.
I love that. Nobody confessed to playing them.
And then, I talked to you, and you recommended Ann as a teacher, and that's the rest is.
Yeah. Yeah, I vaguely remember an email exchange several years ago where you asked about recorder lessons and a physical distance apart, and I already knew Ann at that time, pre-COVID, was teaching online lessons, and she was one of the few people I knew. Notwithstanding that, one of the most amazing teachers I know, and I learned a lot from her. So you really lucked out studying with Ann, since you have plenty of interaction with me. So after recorder, what was next?
When I was when I was in Chicago, that's when I built my harpsichord, and
And I have to ask, did you bought a kit and put it
I
together?
bought a kit, put it together.
From like Hubbard kit or?
Well, with Zuckerman.
A Zuckerman,
But,
okay.
you know,
Okay.
competitor of Hubbard.
Yeah.
And then one day, my wife was somewhere in a parking lot. She came back to her car, and there was a card stuck under the windshield, harpsichord lessons. Go figure.
Oh my goodness. So the harpsichord wasn't strapped to the top of the car?
No.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
you know, it's just a flyer stuck under windshield wipers. And she lived in this, she lived in the same town I worked in, so
Yeah.
it worked out well. So I started taking harpsichord lessons from her. I built a couple hammered dulcimers. There was a fourth generation hammered dulcimer player, not too far. You know, I went to my doctor for a checkup or something, and saw he was into woodworking and built some chairs in the waiting room. And I said, hey, I built this hammered dulcimer. He said, hey, I know a fourth generation hammered dulcimer teacher.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Go figure. So we hooked up. You know, I took hammered dulcimer lessons for a while. As you know, I'm still doing classical guitar too there. But I think the harpsichord was the first thing I built, and then I built 2 hammered dulcimers, and then started building classical guitars.
Okay. Was building a harpsichord difficult?
It wasn't hard because the bent side, it's big, but the bent sides were already bent. The top was all glued up.
It
But
required
still,
the patience you have, I'm guessing.
And still, I had never played a harpsichord. I'd never seen a harpsichord up close. So,
Okay.
much like the hurdy-gurdy, I'd never played one, never seen one. So that makes it a little bit harder too.
Okay.
What's it supposed to be like?
And have you gotten to use your harpsichord for anything?
Other than playing by myself.
No. Okay. Maybe in your next part of your journey, you'll find someone to play harpsichord while you play recorder.
Yeah.
And your wife plays harp.
Yeah. And I know our next door neighbor in St. Louis is a piano teacher.
Okay.
So.
I love it. And so the hurdy-gurdy, was that your next instrument you built?
No, I didn't build that. That was after several guitars. I built my wife's first harp. I built. You might want to edit this out, but I built a banjo.
Okay. No, I won't edit out that you built a banjo. I don't make it a secret. Several years ago, I played a concert with Allison Brown, who's a well-known banjo player who does a lot of session work in Nashville. And I enjoyed the experience so much. I've been trying to talk a composer into writing a piece for recorder and banjo, but I mean not a bluegrass piece or anything.
Right.
So if any composer is listening, I'm all ears and fingers here looking for that piece of music. So no, I love the concept that you built a banjo.
Yeah, and then a concert zither. You remember the movie with Orson Welles, The Third Man?
Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm.
That music in the background was all concert zither.
Okay.
And my mom really liked that movie, so I built it for her.
Okay. And did she already play, or she learned how to play?
No, she was a piano player.
Okay.
But she struggled with that. And eventually, I got it back.
Okay.
So that's
there you go.
It's home. I have built a auto harp too.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Wow, that's a lot of musical instruments. And you sort of moved past this very quickly, but you physically built your own guitars.
Yes.
Too. How many?
I've got 5 or 6. I've got 2 on the workbench.
And I mean, are these all for you? Do you sell them? Are you a
I
luthier and we don't know
they
it?
were practice guitars.
Okay.
I was hoping the next 2 I might give to friends.
Okay.
They're for friends and family. I'm not. It's not.
And do you purchase plans for these, or how do you find out the specs for building a guitar?
Yeah. The American Lutherie Society has a bunch of plans for all kinds of strung instruments. That's where I got the hammer dulcimer plans, several guitar plans, even a gamba plans.
Okay.
So that's the most common place you can get them from museums too.
Okay. Okay. So we've got the hurdy-gurdy, which came later apparently.
Yeah.
You've got the guitars, you've got the banjo, you've got the harp, the harpsichord. And maybe, what else? Have I left something out?
The concert zither.
The zither?
Concert zither, auto harp.
Auto harp.
There was one can't think of it.
Well, it's quite an interesting ordeal to have built all these instruments, and so many that I've already counted 8 types of instruments on my fingers.
Clavichord.
Clavichord. You have a clavichord at home.
I have a clavichord, and I'm working on a Benside spinning harpsichord.
Okay.
Just a compact.
Okay. Is your next house bigger?
The basement is bigger, and that's where I do my work.
Okay, so the basement is bigger, so I guess that's what's important.
The house is small.
In my house, my rehearsal room is 1/4 the size of the house, so priorities really matter.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we do have a music room upstairs.
Okay, I love it. So when you got to Atlanta and you found at the Atlanta Early Music Alliance, what was your involvement with that group at that point? Was it just existing as a member, as many of us do?
Just existing as a member, the announcements, Trinity Baroque, it got me here, and then, somehow I wound up talking to you, and connected with Ann, and took lessons for a few years, and then, somebody thought I was good enough to play in Lauda.
And
I did that anyway, so.
and you played in Lauda, and certainly good enough, because you play all the sizes of recorders that we use in the group, and my memory fails me, but have you played other instruments in Lauda? Well, I know you played viola da gamba.
And lute on some of the recordings.
And lute on some of the recordings. But during that time, have you played capped reeds or anything?
I tried them at the petting zoo.
Okay. Maybe if you build one, you'll play it.
That's funny. I have a 3D printer now.
Okay.
And somebody put out plans to build 3D print a cornemuse.
Okay.
So I printed it out.
Okay.
I was fussing with the reed.
Okay.
And putting it together, and then I had to drill out the tuning holes. But
okay.
I don't know how well it'll sound. I think somebody gave one to George
Kalashak?
So he's seen it, made a couple suggestions, and
okay.
So we'll see where that goes.
Well, hopefully you can have a conversation with George soon, because he loves to have he loves to give his advice on on instruments and reeds and such. So and perhaps probably right after this interview is made public, Lauda Musicum is hosting our play date at George Kalashak's workshop. And as part of that play date, we're going to have some playing sessions that will have these separate capped reed sessions that also will have some information on adjusting reeds. So if anybody's interested in learning, even if you're not playing, I would join us that weekend. Just check out Lauda Musicum's website for the information. So with viola da gamba, by the time you took up viola da gamba, you obviously knew a few early musicians, so you had some personal contacts. And how do you study viola da gamba?
Well, I was introduced to it at, I guess one of your, tried this instrument at Mount Collegium just before pandemic hit.
Okay.
So I was in that class, and we tried capped reeds, we tried gambas, flutes and drums, whatever else you had there.
Yeah.
And I decided gamba was cool, and you suggested Chrissy.
Okay.
So I was taking lessons with her. Now I'm with Gail because Chrissy was taking the summer off.
Yeah. So and both excellent teachers. I love Chrissy's approach because she's very practical. Of course, Gail is also practical and very detail oriented. So these are great teachers you've got connected with. And how's your gamba playing going now?
It's going okay. In fact, Gail just had a play date up in Asheville 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
I went up there, and Holly was there, Barb was there.
Okay. So all these people you never knew you would meet.
Yeah, exactly. So it was good. There was like 20 people, and I managed to keep up for the most part. But
I love it.
It was fun.
And how did lute come into the picture?
Well, that was from the guitar side.
Okay.
And again, you had the lute guitar, hello to is it Jody? I forget. Whoever has played the loop guitars a couple times. That was interesting.
Oh yeah,
I
you mean Isabel was
Isabel,
had the loop guitars? Yeah.
Right. And then I decided I wanted to try loop. You know what that says early music as much
Absolutely.
as anything.
Nothing says early music like the lute.
So, and I figured coming from guitar wouldn't be too bad.
Okay.
But
And were you surprised, or was it fairly intuitive for you?
it's on one hand, it's fairly intuitive. Left hand, right hand.
Mm-hmm.
There are some differences. You've got courses instead of single strings. You can't play too loud or else they buzz.
Okay.
And of course, tablature.
Okay. Which looks like a foreign language because it really is to me. But was reading tablature a big stumbling block? Or
Reading tablature, as far as knowing what finger to put on one string is easy. Reading tablature, as far as knowing that's a C chord,
Okay.
that's an A sharp, or is it a B flat?
Okay.
That's a whole nother story.
Okay.
That's like learning whole foreign clef, and I'm struggling with that.
Okay.
And most of the material is in French notations, French
Okay.
tablature.
And who are you studying lute with?
Well, Francis
Okay.
Perry.
Francis Perry.
In Nashville.
Okay. And I know many people may not know Francis. I actually have never met him, although I know of him through a composer who has performed with Francis a good bit. Are you learning a lot about all of this you're learning about the lute you're learning from Francis?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. We'll have to make some connections with him and get him down to Atlanta.
Yeah. No, your name has come up a number of times, and he's very impressed with what you do here.
Well, I enjoy doing what I do here. Maybe we can twist his arm into moving here, taking your place, so there'll be even more activity in the Atlanta area.
But I know like Linda and Carl know him because they're up in that area.
Yeah.
They've been doing he's had a couple early music playing sessions up there.
Okay. Yeah, I think that Nashville is getting to be fairly, I guess, fairly active compared to how, what the activity had been like a few years ago. But it looks like they're having open mic early music night at one of the music shops there. I've heard about this, but haven't participated.
Yeah, I think Francis has done that a couple times.
Okay.
Because I think one of his students has a music shop.
Okay.
So I made the connection there and calls them recorder pickers.
Okay. So let's move on and let's talk about your involvement with the Atlanta Recorder Society. So I know this story, and it's a short story, and it's that the prior president of the Atlanta Recorder Society, David Lawrence, and his wife Barbara moved off to Austin to be with their daughter and son-in-law and their grandchild. And even though David was the president, he and Barbara team led very well, and the organization was in need. And I know I asked you based on so it's a little arm twisting, and I don't think it was really very much though, because I think. I think even though you're quiet about it, I think you trust your ability and your judgment, and I have to say I'm very appreciative that you trusted me in the nudge that way that would help however possible. But tell me what the experience has been like being president of the Atlanta Recorder Society, knowing with the time frame that you held that position or have held that position.
Yeah, that was obviously I'm not David or Barbara, not even close as far as their musical talent goes. So my big fear was, showing up there and having only a few people and not playing very well. But then the pandemic hit, and
And you didn't have to worry about showing up and there being no people.
I didn't have to worry. All I had to do was worry about finding somebody to lead a session, and I guess the good thing that came out of that was that we got exposed to a number of different teachers that normally we wouldn't have had anyway. Last week we had Maria Chernoff, who lives in Vancouver, so what are the odds?
Yeah.
But she was very good. It was a good session.
Yeah, very, and I'm guessing you probably have enjoyed getting to know these people that,
Yeah.
I mean, it would have, in the past, in the way we thought prior to the pandemic, there would have been teachers and musicians that I would have known about, but would just hope one day our paths would cross. And now we're at a position we know how to cross paths deliberately, even if we can't physically be in the same room.
Right.
So,
I mean, who'd have thunk we would have had Sarah Jeffrey?
exactly right. And I will have to tell you, you've been successful at snagging Sarah Jeffrey, and I have not, because I've asked her to do a couple of things. So you've done some good things for the Recorder Society, I know. And you also, I think probably a lot of people know at this point that you've been serving as director for the Midwinter Workshop, sponsored by the Atlanta Early Music Alliance and the Atlanta Recorder Society. What has that process been like for you?
Well, again, the pandemic. So that was sort of a gear shift there, going from hoping that we'd be able to do it live, and then realizing it a month before that it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go online, scramble to get replace a couple teachers who don't like to do online stuff. And then
So
it came off.
You've actually only done
I've only
online.
done
Okay. And
So-
so you don't have a point of reference for the in-person, although I guess you will soon.
We can only hope.
Yeah, well, something tells me the world is ready to make that happen, whether all the individuals are or not. Okay. And what are you anticipating that experience is going to be like for everybody? What's different about the workshop now than pre-pandemic?
Not a whole lot. We are trying to get some different, one or two different tracks introduced. Percussion this year.
Okay.
We'll see how that goes. And I had hoped to maybe try lute or guitar sometime, but maybe down the road, just to expand see if we can get more interest.
Okay, so
But,
a little diversification
A
there.
little diversification. I know we had harps and voices at one time, and those have sort of petered out, but
Okay. I guess I can empathize with you. Sometimes you have to roll with whatever's going to bring in people at the time, and things can come in waves. But I will say I've had a lot of people ask about percussion, so you're probably making a really good move, bringing in somebody to teach some early percussion. Personally, I feel like most amateur groups, when they're looking to provide a different color in their ensemble, it's a lot easier to do with an instrument that you don't necessarily have to have mastered the fingerings and the note reading and everything else in order to make it happen. At least you can narrow your focus to mostly rhythms and work on developing a technique. And just to be clear, I don't minimize the technique on percussion, because having taught middle school band for a long time, the technique is certainly more specific than many people would like to believe. So you're moving to St. Louis. What's the date you plan to be out of Atlanta? Or is plan the wrong word at this point?
plan is the wrong word.
Okay.
It's very tough to get. We have I called 4 or 5 recommended general contractors because we wanted to get some renovation done in the house before we moved, and only one even returned my call.
Oh, goodness.
And they're just backed up, and
Oh.
then they've got subcontractors to deal with, and so they haven't even started yet. I don't know when they're going to start.
Well, I liked the one I used recently, but they're probably not interested in traveling to St. Louis to do any work. Well, that's too bad. But will you be moving if you can't get the work done? At some point anyway, will you have to just call it and move?
We're thinking about it.
Okay. And what have you set up for yourself an entry into the music scene when you get to St. Louis? You said your next door neighbor is a piano teacher, so there's already a connection there.
Of course, Ann lives there.
And Timberlake lives there. You've been taking recorder lessons with her, and you've had experience with her. You've actually brought Ann in for workshops, and you've experienced her in workshops.
Right.
And a very active recorder society out there.
And she knows a lute player.
Okay.
Nice lute player. Gamba is the only thing I haven't figured out yet.
Okay.
But, you know.
Well, you've managed lute online and recorder online. I guess you
Gamba
could.
online.
Oh, you've done. That's right. You've done Gamba online. So I guess you can make some things work.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting.
Do you plan to keep your involvement going with, say, Mountain Collegium? I know you're a regular attendee of Mountain Collegium now. Do you hope you're able to continue with all of that?
I'm hoping. I don't know what else there is up there. I think I've heard some people talk about something in Indiana.
Okay.
Some early music thing in Indiana. I'll see what else is around.
Yeah, and I wish I knew more about what was going on in the Midwest, but like a lot of things, sometimes things are regional, so it's hard to know exactly what's going on. But I do know there's activity around in Indiana and Texas, which is probably not remarkably close, but it's still at least that direction. So there are things going on. I can't finish the interview without saying, I can only speak for myself, but I do think I echo like the Atlanta Early Music Alliance and also the Atlanta Recorder Society, that despite the fact that this whole entry into early music has been, I think, relatively recent, but much like the entry many people have in early music, I think what you did to serve the community has been outstanding, since you came in and you were able to take the reins on these activities just because it was needed to be done. And I hope one legacy you can leave with Atlanta, although you probably never imagined you would leave Atlanta with any sort of legacy, but I hope you'll be able to leave having assured other people that they don't have to be at the top of the rung or on the top rung in order to be able to create opportunities for other people. So I hope you feel very good about that as you and your wife move on to be with the rest of your family and you're being grandparents out there, I believe, right? Yeah. So that sounds like it sounds like a wonderful prospect. It seems like the rage right now, because I've known several people do that. My sister just did that, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess it's our generation's time to move for those reasons.
Yeah.
So tell me are there any other musical things you did outside of early music that you consider that would have enriched your life?
When I moved down, I was still taking classical guitar lessons, and I was used to Chicago. We had the Chicago Classical Guitar Society, and moved down to Atlanta. There was really nothing, although there had been societies come and go. And then Mary Ackerman, who was at that time a music teacher up at Kennesaw State, she started with some other people, the Atlanta Guitar Guild, and they sponsored concerts throughout the year. And then they started the Atlanta Guitar Orchestra, and I played in that for a few years, and then pandemic hit. They haven't done anything since then.
How large was that organization?
It probably started out as 25 or 30. Last season, I think we had 16.
Okay. And these are people who play classical guitar.
Okay. We played Pretorius up to Lady Gaga.
Okay.
It was a wide, diverse musical thing. We did it in Clarkston at I think Georgia State.
Oh yeah,
campus there.
That campus in Clarkston.
Very nice.
Did you know the Atlanta Recorder Society used to meet at that very campus?
No, I didn't know.
So
that.
Look at there, you've come full circle.
Wow.
Yeah, for a number of years we met on that campus in the music building.
Huh. So you know that building?
I do know that building a little bit. Yeah, I do know that building. And any other music organizations you've been a part of here?
No. I've been part of this.
Okay, so MIMF.com, Musical Instrument Makers Forum. Okay, I saw that you had a themed T-shirt on, but I just assumed that was something technical from your professional life. But I see that's something technical from your musical life.
Yeah.
Okay, and being I assume this is an organization. You joined this organization?
Yeah, and actually now I run it because
Oh.
the person who started it retired from it. So I'm, webmaster or whatever you want to call it for it.
Oh, well, tell me about the organization, or tell us all about the organization.
It's an online forum specializing in musical instrument making of all kinds.
Okay.
We have sections for, banjos, strung, wind. It's probably mostly guitar builders, but, a little bit of everything.
What is the forum like? Do people exchange ideas? And
It's a lot of it is ideas, questions about building, how to build this, how to build that, how to tweak this, tweak that, building jigs for making musical instruments. Where can I find plans for this kind of instrument or that kind of instrument?
Okay. And are there ever physical meetings for this group?
No,
you
never.
get to be all online?
No, it's all online.
Have you found out about any interesting instruments through this organization?
That's where I met the hammered dulcimer.
Okay. And you built the hammered dulcimer a long time ago, so you've apparently been a part of this organization then for a long time.
For a long time.
Okay.
And the person who started retired maybe 10 years ago, and I've been running it since.
Okay, and this is something absolutely new. Like there are little bits and pieces about you that I knew. There's something in that area, but I never knew about this about you, that you ran this organization.
Yeah, and this has been around. This one has been around for 25 years, so
okay,
been around a while.
So
very civil forum.
Okay. Yeah, that civil forums are needed. We need to put you in charge of some social media platforms and see if you can get some of those straightened out for us all. So as as a self-professed amateur early musician, what do you think that amateur musicians or professional musicians could do to bring more people into this world and make people more interested in what we do?
Well, the instruments we play, the recorders, the hurdy-gurdy, there's not a lot of teachers.
Okay.
For those. If you want to learn electric guitar, you can go almost anywhere. But hammered dulcimer teachers are very rare. Recorders, oud teachers.
Okay.
Thank God we can do this stuff online. It's maybe not as good as in person, but it's certainly something.
Okay.
And I think having a resource like you is just so wonderful, being able to give your time to the Lauda as a outlet for people like me.
Yeah.
So there aren't many like that. I'm pretty sure there's none like that in St. Louis.
Yeah. So there are great things going on in St. Louis, and once again, that's very kind of you to say. And I think you and I have been looking at things very similarly then, because I've been hoping for a while now to find somebody interested in moving to Atlanta to help make the early music scene a little more vibrant. Like you say, finding teachers can be difficult. And finding groups to join can be difficult. Mm-hmm. So basically, what you're saying is just accessibility to learning and learning about the instruments.
And there aren't a lot of people like you to start with.
Yeah.
That are recorder fans or any of the early music instruments, gambas or whatever.
Okay.
So if you're a gamba teacher, I know Gail does a great job up in Nashville.
Absolutely.
And, where did these, I went up there to that workshop, 20 people, and 10 more that couldn't come for one reason or another. Where did these people come from? And
if you look at the mailing list for these people, practically every one of them comes from a different town.
Yeah.
So most of those people are what they would call singletons. One person in this town who plays, or one person in that town. So I guess it doesn't help that our community is spread out among consumers too.
Yeah, it's spread out. And I live out in Snellville. I don't know any people I could play with out there.
I don't know anyone out there either.
Other than my wife.
Yeah. So, and we didn't really talk about your wife. Your wife is a musician. She's a harp player. But how did she come into music?
I built her a harp.
Okay, so you basically said, "Here, honey, here's a present. Now learn how to play it."
What instrument do you like? And she said harp. So I went down in the basement. A month or two later, I gave her a harp, and she liked it. She started taking lessons, and that was up in Chicago.
Did she know you were building this harp while it was in progress?
No.
So it truly was a complete surprise.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we moved down here, and she hooked up with Kelly.
Okay, so she's taking harp with Kelly Brzezowski. Okay.
The harp with Kelly for a long time.
Okay. Well, and that's also an interesting story. So you having barely had musical exposure before your adult life started, and then becoming this deeply involved, and then bringing your wife into music also. Do you play together?
We're going to be doing that more.
Okay.
We do some Christmas stuff we've done before. We used to have monthly guitar get together. My teacher was in Lawrenceville, and it was a mailing list of maybe 20 guitarists, and 5 or 6 would show up any given month. And, we just play for each other.
Okay.
We'd bring a little food or wine, and that was fun.
Okay.
We didn't play every once in a while. A couple of people would play duets, and part of that was the guitar orchestra too, because a lot of those people were also in that. So that was a fun thing to do.
Absolutely.
Of course, the pandemic killed that too. So that was my closest experience to, consort.
Yeah. Well, music would not be the same without the social aspect of it. I firmly believe, because I, for one, had a lot of difficulty keeping up with being a musician during the pandemic when I couldn't play with anyone or play in person with even students. So I guess my sense of motivation changed. Did you have a hit to your motivation during that time?
A little bit, because one thing is that nobody hears you when you're online, which is not a bad thing. But I really appreciated the opportunity that Cloud gave to do the recordings.
Okay.
That was something new, and
so I have to ask, and for our listeners to catch them up, when Lauda Musicum is a community Renaissance band, about 30 people strong in most years, and we play 2 or 3 concerts a year. And our answer during the pandemic was to work on music as we typically would in our before times rehearsals, but using multi-track recordings. And then as the concert time would approach, we would give folks an opportunity to contribute a line of music to a multi-track recording that would result in a group concert made of all of these lines recorded together. Tell me how that worked for you, and do you feel like you gained anything from that?
It was fun. It was fun because I could play multiple instruments on the same recording, which obviously you can't do in person. There was the technological point part of it too, which is kind of geeky but kind of fun. Learning Audacity or Reaper or whatever. Of course, you wanted to play it perfectly, so
my understanding is
many times.
Yeah, my understanding is most people had the most difficult part with having to play back what you just recorded.
That's
What was that experience like?
Yeah, that's something I've always struggled with. A teacher will tell you, you should record yourself and listen. And, I record myself, but getting to the listen part is, I don't have time.
I understand.
Because you hear the mistakes or this, that, and the other thing. You want to make it perfect, and you can just go down the whole rat hole with that.
So do you feel like your musical skills improved listening to yourself, as your teachers had suggested?
I think they do. Yeah.
What aspects of your playing benefited the most from it?
Balancing the different things, balancing the different voices, I think is one thing. Another thing that you've mentioned more than one time is, when it's, I forget now how it goes, when it's the third and a major chord, you want to go a little flat,
A little lower.
a little lower, and when it's a minor chord, you want to go a little sharp.
Yeah.
So that's something, and of course the whole breathing thing with recorders is
Yeah.
totally new.
Because you hear every breath you take,
Hear
and
every breath.
you know, and I have to say one of the things I benefited from the most in all of this having to listen myself was hearing how out of tune I really was when I didn't realize it. So the dose of truth the recordings gave me was not only helpful, but probably, you know, I would consider that something positive that came out of all of it.
Definitely, and the nice thing about you doing the recordings is you could hear yourself out of tune, and you could do it, you know, play it, and you know, okay, now I've got to blow a little harder, now I've got to blow a little softer.
Oh, so it gave you a chance
Right.
to fix it rather than it being a problem of the past. You could
Right.
fix it. Yeah.
Right. I could experiment because you've got the recording. I played classical guitar for probably 15 or 20 years. I thought I had a pretty good handle on Renaissance composers.
Yeah.
And then I met you. And, you know, other than like Bach and Pretorius, a whole new people I'd never heard.
Well, and are there favorite composers you have now?
Oh, you know, there's just, you know, I have to always like Dallin.
Okay.
But his stuff is hard to play.
Yeah. Do you sing too?
No.
Okay.
You
You
know
have.
what?
Yeah. Well, I don't sing either, but I understand. So maybe one day you'll have to get voice lessons so you can sing the lute songs.
Yeah.
But I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
You know, that would put me in a bind to have to sing like that.
And you know you set it up so Anne's group, the three sisters.
Oh, Wayward Sisters.
Wayward Sisters.
Yeah.
They came down and there was a lute player there, and what he said I think really was true for me. He said, you know, the Dallin, the music of that day was like the folk music of
Mm-hmm.
today or the 60s.
Yeah.
That really struck me as, yeah, that's maybe that's why I like it.
I bet it's nice to be in an in-person environment now where we can stretch the musical phrase a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have to relearn how to conduct now. So I understand how getting back to this human approach to making music is going to be appreciated.
Of course, you don't have the conductor online.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, I've had, you know, we had in the guitar orchestra, we had years where we had student conductors.
Mm-hmm.
We had years where we had no conductors. The last couple of seasons, we had a great conductor.
Okay.
And that makes a ton of difference too.
Absolutely.
A ton of difference.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing after everyone gets back in shape after a few more weeks of getting used to these in-person environment for making music. I'm interested to see what the end result's going to be as we move forward.
And then you're going to mix the two together at the very
There we go. So tell us about the Midwinter Workshop this year. When is it, and what are the plans?
It's going to be January 20th to the 22nd at Dickerson Middle School, not too far from Jody's old school.
Okay, so in Cobb County, probably
County.
a little more accessible from downtown Atlanta.
Still be a pain in the
But all of Cobb County is difficult to get to.
But it'll follow what we've done in the past. We'll have a registration and an informal playing session Friday evening, short. And then we'll have 4 classes spread out through the day on Saturday for recorders, viols, maybe percussion. And then we'll have a couple all plays at the end of the day Saturday, one for wind instruments and the other for viols. And then we'll have a all play Sunday morning, and that'll be it.
Okay, well, and that's good to hear. And what I would like to add to that is, like I gained from talking to you, there was a point in your life that you felt like, ooh, I may not really be good enough to do this. Mm-hmm. But I hope from this experience, people can see that you don't have to be super great at anything in order to participate in these workshops. And if you are able to hear this interview and want to come and, for all practical purposes, audit the workshop, we do invite you to do so, because it is typical in the early music community for people to learn these instruments as adults, just like Charlie did, like many of the members of this organization have done. And they just had to jump in and figure out that what we're saying is true. It's a friendly community, it's a welcoming community, and people want to see you succeed and have a good time. So you're always going to be under somebody's wing when you participate in these. So I encourage you to check out the workshop that Charlie's running in January. Well, Charlie, it's been great having you here today and talking with us and letting our listeners learn a little more about you. I would be remiss not to mention how grateful I am that our paths crossed. So
Likewise.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. But I think that whether people know how to say it or not, or take the time to say it or not, I think most people don't realize that your story is really from an amateur musician standpoint as far as playing instruments. And I see a lot of surprise on people's faces when they see that you've built an instrument, just like I've learned new instruments that you've built. So you're full of surprises. And I hope that you enjoy your life in St. Louis, but more than anything, I hope you're back in Atlanta a lot to participate with us. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we hope you've enjoyed this time learning a little more about Charlie. And we hope you too can find some inspiration in Charlie's story. And if you know of someone interesting you would like for me to chat with, whether they're a professional musician or someone just steeped deeply into the community, please reach out and let us know. Thanks everybody, and have a great one.